So we're looking through the different types and subtypes in the comma separated variable file for phrase snapshot, which is where we put the named entity expressions. We're looking at the buildings. I made the decision that I was going to refer to a hospital as a building and not as a company. It just seemed to fit the Cardiff document. Whether it fits other documents, I'm not too sure. So we've got Llandaff Hospital and Whitchurch Hospital. We've got centres. Now what we said was, if it's got a word on the end which is not polysemous in WordNet, then we can identify it definitely as a building. So centre and palace and so on. Of course, there is another meaning of centre. And I wonder if I've excluded that happily. We had the problem with the centre of a city, but I mean that's centre with a city name to the left, so that's easily detectable. So here we have a centre, and the thing to the left is not a known place. So that means that it's the head word that we're going to use for determining that it's a building. So a centre has to be housed in a building. Palace is okay, steelworks okay, chapel. Church, as soon as it got St Mary's or somebody else, I decide that it's going to be a place, unless it's followed by another word like centre, in which case it's still a place, or church, in which case it's still a place. St Fagan's Castle. St Fagan's is a town, so it's not the castle of a St Fagan's, but we've got the word castle at the end. Airport, institution. I've decided institutions would be buildings. I think elsewhere I've decided that institution behaves like a museum or an art gallery. We'll have a look at that in a second or two. We're getting theatres and arcades, Roman Catholic Cathedral. Now I've actually put a subtype of historical on that, which is a bug in the code, I'm sure. Isca Augusta, that's nice, because that's the Latin for Cardiff, I think it is, and that's historical. Quite why Roath Basin is historical, I'm not too sure. So I think we might have some bugs in there and need to square that out a bit. Then we've got districts. Now they can be streets, or they can be squares, or they can be named districts. And I've got Met Office. Don't really like that. I mean, it's a building. Okay. Queen Street's okay. Cardiff City. It's, yeah, well, do we mean the centre of Cardiff? If that's what we mean, it's okay. Butte Park, Sophia Gardens, Culverhouse Cross. So, I mean, if it's a town with a cross that we know about, then we'll call it a UK town. Otherwise, we'll say that it's a district of another city, Charing Cross, and so on. Parks, gardens, and so forth. Bus station, I decided would be a district because it's big enough. You know, there's lots of roads around it, so it's an area really. Welsh Rugby Union is probably completely wrong, and quite why I've got that I don't know. I've got RFC, but probably not use Rugby Union separately, and I ought to insert it. High Street Arcade. Arcades are they buildings or are they areas? Well, that's got the word street in, and it's got the word arcade, so I think there are 2 votes for going for a district. High Street's a district. Community. Now, of course, a community is a set of people. They might be distributed geographically. They're not bound to be together. So maybe we ought to invent some kind of a new type for that. But I've made it the street, square, district type. More arcades, larger urban zone, heliport, Cardiff bus. That's wrong, isn't it? Really, I don't know why bus has come out as a district. So that's a bug in the coding, I think. Chamber Tomb is, well, I've given it a district. I'm trying to think what Stanford do with their named entity extractor. I tried this in Stanford to see what we get, and they made it a place. I think 2 separate. No, 1 place it was. Tomb. I think Tomb alone. Swansea City, Castle Quarter. Valandra is an area, a district. It is not in our list of towns. Otherwise, we would say UK town alongside. Parks, terraces. gardens, hospital, infirmary, and somebody who can't spell properly and sticks all sorts of funny punctuation in. So I think the word Vale is what's triggering that, and we're just saying a place, and we don't have any sort of subtype because it's not very clear. Counties of Wales is plural, so it's maybe I ought to make it geographic if we have a plural on a known name for a town or a county, maybe. The school, yeah, well, all I can say is that that's a place which might have local importance in the document, but as you move around the document, there will be other schools, So it's, what, ellipsis or anaphor? It's anaphor, isn't it? Okay. Right, so that's done all of the places, and they're pretty reliable, aren't they? They're not too bad at all. Put a little bit more bugging in and debugging in, and we'll be very happy with those, I think. So it doesn't stop, it's only about 6 weeks ago that this idea of having a big context engine occurred to me. So I will be putting that in, probably have it done by sort of January or February time. Okay, so we've gone through all of those, and the personal names, and the months, which were no problem at all. We're getting those 99%, no difficulties. We do use keywords like before and during and recent in order to deal with, I think, probably just a single name of a month. So otherwise, if Julie, that's a problem. People. That's July 2009, but Julie is a forename. So if we find July in the middle of text, we need to know from its context if it's a person or if it's a month. So if we've got the word recent or before or between, during, so that's another example of context that seems to work okay. We've got that sort of 90% covered, but if we put it into a more powerful context engine, so we're not just looking at the previous word, but half a sentence to the left and half a sentence to the right, we are likely to be more accurate. So it's it's an unfinished work. It'll get even better than this. Now products, if it's not a company and it's not a person and it's not a place, we more or less say it's a product. So if it's an artifact, if it's something that's made according to WordNet, then we say that it's a product. Now, Olympic standard, that's actually an adjective, but it's hyphenated, so we probably are not looking it up properly and not quite sure what's happening with that. The economy is a product, Royal Charter is a product, temperature. Some of these are just headings, of course. So it's just one word at the beginning of a sentence, and that's the whole of the sentence, that's the heading. National Geographic, well, do we say that's a company or a product? I mean, it's the magazine you pick up in the dentist's surgery. So I'm saying that it's a product. The Ordnance Survey is a product of surveyors, education and health. Then we're back to funny names of pop stars and pop groups for which we need a powerful context engine. Catatonia and super furry animals. I mean, catatonia isn't in any dictionary, and super furry animals, I don't know what they are at all. I mean, things are glam or magna or super or I don't know. So there is specialist vocabulary that you can use inside pop musicians' names. But the way to address it is certainly with, I think, with a powerful context engine. So some of these are headings, and some of that are particular products. Now we actually classify them. So dock. Now dock is a plant. Dock leaves. I'm sure here it refers to Cardiff docks. So we do get the polyseme problem coming in. Ash, I think that is referring to a plant, to a tree actually. PDF is an artifact. It appears 22 times. Notice it appears late on. It's actually mentioned in all of the references. So if we cleaned it up and we didn't have any references, that wouldn't appear. If we did an initial analysis and got the offset to the start of the references, and the end of the references, we would say, well, that's not an important artifact because it's only in a reference. So you could eliminate those. ISBN is book number, so that's actually part of a reference. Norman Conquest is an artifact. It was certainly done by the Normans, and it's an event, I suppose. Victorian, that actually shouldn't really be an artifact. Maybe it's got a determiner in front of it. I would have made it a dynasty normally. But as I say, there's still a few bugs in here and a lot of sort of single stepping through to find them. Saxon shore forts. That would be nice if that was historic, because it's got the word Saxon at the beginning. So a bit more coding in there, I think, to look not just at the final word and determine is it an artifact, but is there a reference to a historic company before that. Okay, so here are products which are institutions, and they're pretty good, aren't they? Welsh Sports Association, UK Parliament, Welsh Assembly, Division, don't know. Rail is an institution, railways I suppose. Welsh Club is an institution. Celtic Sea isn't, I don't know where that's come from. European Parliament is an institution, British Embassy is. Garden of Cardiff is, I remember coding that. I mean, they refer to an area between two valleys as the Garden of Cardiff. I mean, it clearly isn't. It's a sort of a, it's been thought up by a committee to call it that. So institution goes in there. Here we've got activities, and these come quite nicely out of WordNet. It tells you if a war's an activity, or radio, or civil war. Our radio, of course, can be two things. It can be the name of a radio station, here called Smooth Radio, or it can be the thing with knobs on that sits on the desk. You know, I'm not sure how I decided between the two there, off the top of my head. I'd have to check it. And then we're into the documents, which are the references at the end. Okay, so that's products. So they look more or less all right. Now we're left with companies. Now, the question is, if you have a word and it's not in any of your lists, it's not in WordNet, what do you do with it? Now, if you throw it out, it could be an important word. So one approach that I took with this was, if we don't have no record of it at all, we'll call it a company name. And sometimes we'll be right and sometimes we'll be wrong. So this company name entry, this is where a powerful context engine will make an enormous difference. We do have a limited context engine. So if we have a word and we don't know if it's a product or we don't know if it's a company, we go into that, and we know that company X manufactured product Y. But product Y was manufactured by company X, and we're not at the moment distinguishing between past historic and past passive, or present passive, any passive at all. And so we need an FSA in the context engine. It's not rocket science, obviously, but you need an FSA right at the beginning before you start doing the analysis. So that's the next stage that I'm going to go in for. So we have a lot of stuff here that are simply defaults. Taff we've got elsewhere as a river, but it was probably mentioned here before it was mentioned as a river. I think that's the reason. They were talking about how the word Taff came